jurisdiction. That Ghana can take opportunity, or if you like, transferable lessons in order to transform the life of our creatives. Because they are contributing so much to our development in terms of pushing the identity of the nation, in terms of projecting the artistic doings of our forebears, and then making their own contemporary contribution to society. In fact, when we talk of identity as a nation, they project it. If you get up, you want to hear news, they let you hear it. We are talking reparation, or we're talking restitution. Why are we talking about it? It's because of our creatives. They created interesting artistry, nice carvings, gold weight, carved them, wove nice textiles, and did a whole lot of stuff that were looted during colonial times. And these magnificent objects they created are found in the spaces of galleries in the Western countries, which they are making huge sums of money. We're now crying for the thing to be brought back, and they say, no, we have made legislation. The legislation does not allow that you bring it. Recently, we heard of some of the items that were returned from the UK to Otumfo, and they said it's on loan. Something that belongs to us is on loan. And this is the minds that were behind this, were the creative, the artisans.
Okay.
My father, my uncle in the village, and all other people who are creating.
So let's pack it down, because I thought creatives were, music, movies, those who are into all these things. But now you've mentioned artisans, you've mentioned craftsmen. So we are talking about even carpenters. We are talking about blacksmiths. Is that the scope of this study when you want to define who a creative arts person is?
Yeah, thank you. Creative is as I said, is broadly defined, and in technical terms, if you look at those countries that have pension scheme, they look straight at people who practice and make a living from their creative or artistic activities. And that shapes the national culture and identity. And so that is the definition. So what we asking for, or what we appealing, that when the nation accepts to create a pension scheme backed by an act of parliament, so that we'll be able to define, based on what other countries have done, we're able to define, and those who will be covered by this, and it's going to go a long way to help us.
Why is it urgent? Why do we need to have this conversation now?
This is urgent, and it's long overdue, because every now and then we hear of some creatives in challenges, and they have to come on air, public space, to come and beg. And there are news items that show that our former president and other people have been going to their aid, and other philanthropists have been going to their aid. But these are the people that we see on the screen. What about those who are not seen on the screen in their various homes, in villages? How can they appeal to people? Despite their contribution, nothing. When we are happy, we use music. Even when we are crying, we use music. We use all these entertaining things to console us, to make up our lives. And so it is about time that we recognize their contribution to national development. Because if you look at we're talking about culture. Art is a very big aspect of culture. Right.
Benoska,
I'm telling you.
what went into this research? What did you find most striking?
Okay, all right. So thank you very much to your viewers and to our wonderful listeners also. And as you rightly said, Professor Obed also with us in spirit. Let me use this opportunity to thank you and your crew for inviting us for this insightful discussion, and also to say shout out to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Stephen Jobson Mitchell, Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Esther Danso Redu, and then our Registrar, Madam William Natete Mesa, and my Dean, who is here in spirit, Professor Emmanuel Obedakwa. What inspired us on this research basically is that we realized that it has been too many consistent with all around the world. In fact, there's a study that was organized by the American Bureau of Investigations and Financial Support they said that about 78% of, which is National Football League players, after they retire for 2 years, they go bankrupt. 60% of NBA players also goes bankrupt after 5 years of retirement. And then in the Ghanaian space, we have creatives, which we can look at it from the creative economy point of view, which is arts and craft, photography, music, film, performing arts, which includes dance, drama, theater. We have computer software, games, research and development, media, publishing, television, radio, and fashion and textiles, animation, gaming. All these spectrums fall within the creative space. And it is not only in Ghana that people who engage in these kind of economic activities suffer financial issues in their old age. You see, the problem is that when you are active, like I'm here, you can go about like yourself and all the wonderful camera crew and the photographer, beautiful lady taking her shot. When you are active, you can really work and make money. What about when you turn 60? Or let's say an ill befalls on you and you are no longer able to work. What happens to you? You have no means of survival again because your active service is gone. Your inability to be able to move to make ends meet, you now find yourself on the verge of begging. We've seen Super Odi, our president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, way back in 2004, 2007, going there supporting him. We saw Emmanuel Ama, who was a wonderful broadcaster, who was begging for alms. We saw Samuel Ajete Fio, who was even needing money to pay his rent and to go under heart surgery. We've seen, Okonfo Kwade family asking for help to sustain him. We've seen Sugar Tone, a music producer who needs help, to be able to even survive. And we found out that in America and other places, there are systems in place that during your active services, you yourself, you are mandated by law to contribute to that system. And then also, government has set up a pension scheme where the people that engage your services by law also pays percentage of the money they are paying to you to the scheme, so that immediately you apply for pension or your inability to perform again, you are automatically taken care of. And it is not only in Ghana that we have these issues. It's all over the world. All over the world. And people have taken the initiative and passed legal registrations to be able to make sure that, yes, the people who are making us laugh, the people who are giving us content, the people who are giving us informations, risking their lives at the expense of us to be able to be emotionally, psychologically, physically, and even mentally okay and enjoy our lives. That is the alarming issues that we need to be able to find where it is working so we can learn from them.
I find it fascinating that there's actually a concept that when someone engages the services of a creative, they are required by law,
yes,
to pay a certain percentage of the charge,
yes,
into a designated account, like SNIT.
exactly.
That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Where is this happening? Which countries are practicing this model, and is it working?
Okay, so I will just take you back in history. Way back in 1960, some countries realized that, look, these are people who are making us happy and this and that and that. And then today, they are living on the street because they don't have ends meet. And it becomes psychologically an issue that somebody who was one time admiring, taking photos with them anytime you meet them, and now today they are begging to feed. No, we can't watch this thing happen. So Germany started, and then what did they do? They passed a law. And in the law, you, the artist, every event you do, it is just like the withholding tax. We take it from the money we are going to pay for you, and then we pay it to them. So the event organizer who is hosting you must pay to that scheme, and you, the artist, must also pay into that scheme. And government also contributes money into that same scheme so that Then we look at how much you need. So based on your contribution, there's a calculation. The government passed that law to be able to regulate it properly. Just like in Ghana, we have the Ghana Pensions Regulatory Authority. Right. So that is what Germany has done. And you go to France, similar situations have also. And you see, one thing I realized that it's not only about pension, maternity leave. Maternity. So at the time that you are 9 months, between 9 months and even after maternity, post-maternity, you are not able to perform. What happens? You need to survive. And so they have that aspect. And then they have health insurance. Not just the normal health insurance, but a health insurance which is specifically geared towards these creatives. So that it is not like he turns up in the hospital and instead of him getting medical attention, now people want to take photos of him and be posting on social media. This artist is here and he's sick and we need to, then people are just sharing. No, it's kind of like brings the person's dignity into big issues, right?
But there are existing laws that guide happenings within the space, labor laws, pension laws, the SNIT scheme.
Yep.
And we've been working these laws for a long time. How have we lost sight of the gaps? Or how did this happen that there's a huge chunk of these persons who should be protected by these laws and these schemes, but appear to be rather out of those circles rather than within it? How did that happen?
Yeah, thank you so much. That is the gap. That is the big gap in Ghana. If you look at those countries, Germany, France, South Korea, and many others who have, pension scheme for creatives, they fill in that gap. If you look at our SNIT, it has tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, based on the two acts that were passed. And the tier 1 and 2 is for public sector workers. The tier 3 is for private workers, voluntary, contribution. And anywhere in the world, when you allow people to do voluntary contribution, it doesn't go well. Even if you leave the formal workers that, yes, come take your money, there's no. So it is taken right from source so that you contribute. And that is the gap that needs to be filled in terms of creating a pension scheme for our creatives. Because if you say their work is informal, that is in a specific term or in more detail, that is wrong to say it is informal. Because these are the people who create, which government can regulate and take taxes from them based on the creation they do. Because once we introduce an act in Parliament to create a creatives pension scheme, targeting creatives, all category of creatives. Now we're going to bring all their activities under booking, so they will be paying taxes. We will see the earnings they make everywhere because the tax or the act will mandate so, and so we'll be able to take taxes from them and develop, whilst they also contribute to national development. One of the things that this comes out is that if you look at the movies or the productions or if you like things that we put on our screens, many a time little is projected by Ghanaian culture and we complain that, oh, we are showing foreign content here, blah, blah, blah. Because those foreign countries, they support their creatives, so they also intentionally show things of cultural importance and relevance in their things that they do. In our space, they have contributed so much that project us as Ghana, shape our identity. Let's take Kente for example. Kente has been one of the symbolic fabrics for the Ghanaian, people and Africa. For example, when the American, Republicans, when they were demonstrating against one of the comment that one of the presidents made, they used Kente as a signal to say, no, we are not, excuse my language, shithole country. We do this. Look at the things that our people do. So Kente is everywhere. At the UN Assembly, at the time of Nkrumah, it decorated the background of the UN Assembly. And these were created by our creatives, our artisans. And so filling in the gap is bringing them from where we have classified them as informal and bring them to the formal space, look at, regulate their activities, get them registered, and then look at how, we can pay percentage. Now, another thing is folklore. Folklore, if you look at Act 690, it's basically, the arts that people didn't name. It was created by Ghanaians, but they don't own it because they created it for the society. And once they have created it for society, it means it's for the state. And government takes taxes on this folklore in trust for the people of Ghana. And so all these monies can be channeled to look at, how we can help creative, so we can take percentage of that. If you look at the Senate, those in the former scheme, there's a percentage that government pays, and then workers pay some percentage. So same could be done using this. And again, anytime somebody imports any medium that can be used to copy, creative works, tax are placed on them.
In Ghana?
In Ghana. So if you imported, let's say, cameras, pen drives, iPad,
Mobile
everything, mobile phones, they are taxes. And the idea is that you'll be using it to capture creative things and whatever. And so these taxes can be also channeled to look at them, because we need to help them.
But if the law, as we have them now, does not make those explicit provisions for these creatives that we want to target who've been, somehow roped out of the current system, then there has to be certain processes that we must bring on board. In this research, you spoke to some of the creatives yourself. I'm sure you spoke to other stakeholders, even those who employ the services of creatives. Do they understand the magnitude of the advocacy needed to get to the point where we're seeing the ideals that you two have explained, Professor Sweeney and Benjamin, that creatives are getting their due? Do people understand? Do the stakeholders in the process understand? And do they understand what more it will take to get us there?
Okay, to say this, then my brother continues. The bigger challenge is the wide division at the front of the creatives. So if we look at the countries that succeeded in passing, the pension scheme for creative, it is the huge advocacy by all the creative groups coming together to make sure this is done. Because our current, legal regime does not permit so. So we need an act of parliament that is going to either amend the already existing Pensions Act. So once you, amend it to accommodate these creatives, then it becomes something very workable. Because when something has not been passed by Parliament, enforceability becomes something. And another issue is that we don't, as a nation, we don't have a national creative art policy. Back in 2013, Professor Mills did something wonderful. May his soul rest in perfect peace. That was the first attempt that he said, look, I'm giving 2 million Ghana cedis to creatives. And he gave it to Musica because they were prominent at the time. So, and that was the first time we had arts added to culture ministry to recognize the doings of the creatives. And interestingly, when His Excellency, the President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, was inaugurating the Black Star experience, he did mention that we need to cover, pension for creatives, because at the retirement age, or when their age cannot help, they go through certain challenges that need to be worked. And interestingly, if you look at the abridged version, the Resetting Ghana Agenda, the manifesto, page 26 of it, it makes clear that there's a need for pension for those who are in the informal sector. So it is about time that Parliament come up with a legislation to do that, because all the industry players that we met are clamoring, are saying that this is what we need, so that we can support creative. Because what we see on the screen is something polished, something terrible is happening at the back. Their conditions are very precarious, which we need to do something about.
Well, Benjamin will add a few thoughts, but the proposal you're bringing about is a tripartite contribution: 13% from the government, 3% from consumers, 2.5% from creatives. So add to what you want to say. I just
Yeah.
want to understand how the funding model
Okay.
would work.
All right. So, first, let me start with the stakeholders. And the stakeholders, I want to break it into two. Internal stakeholders, that is the people, practitioners themselves. Truly, anybody, any ordinary creative persons don't want you to touch their money. And so that issue of understanding that, yes, we need pensions, they see it as not relevant for today. Why? Because it's my money. Why do you want to touch it? And that issue of even trust, that when I get my money, contribute to this pension scheme, will I really, really benefit?
Transparency and accountability
Exactly.
is important.
And they will even tell you stories where those who are now classified as former workers, they go on pensions and they will be chasing for their pension scheme for 1 year, 2 years. Some even die before that lump sum is given. And then those who are also unable to even appear themselves get deactivated from the system because they are classified as no more living. So these issues are there that some creatives expressed, that the current system that we do, we have challenges. Another issue they also classified is the issue of royalties, which is even currently what they should be able to benefit. They are not getting that fairly. And we have an issue with that because the royalty system currently being operated here in Ghana as the Copyright Act 690/2005 states is that we don't have itemized system of payment. So money are collected on a blank levy, just as Professor Ini was talking about, on the blank levy for imported items such as cameras, microphones, anything that is going to directly or indirectly affect the mechanical right of creatives are charged blank levy. And that blank levy should also have a means where if GTV plays a music, if Unique FM plays music, and all other events spaces, just like your gardens, if they host an event and then they're able to log, they're able to state that, yes, we play Binoska's music for 3 minutes, we play Kobienchi for 2 minutes, we play that. And so at the end of the month, yes, Binoska or Daddy Lumba or what they call Kofi Kenata has 120 minutes. And if we divide that 120 minutes per the number of songs that we've received as logged, they will be able to show that, yes, indeed, you are due this amount. And these issues are not dealt with. So internal stakeholders have challenges, even believing that this new pension scheme we are talking will actually work. Now let's look at the external stakeholders. The external stakeholders are government himself as one, which is all of us. And then another part of that external factor is the people who engages the services of the creatives, which is the internal. Some of them are already event organizers, so they have become part of the issue. If they don't understand that, look, I have to support this to be able to even protect my interest and that of the people that I'm working with.
Because where's that extra money going to come from?
Exactly.
If you're engaging the services of,
Yep.
you mentioned media, so maybe a media professional,
Yep.
me, and then you come offering 2,000 Ghana cedis
Yes.
for a 1-hour event or anything.
Yep.
Is the 13% going to come from my 2,000, or are you the one going to pay for that?
Okay.
13%. I understand that the 2.5 may be from what I am getting.
Yes.
So that's
that is, you are paying
2,000 amount
directly
to the
pension scheme.
So
You
where's
see?
the 13% going to come from?
Okay, so the person who is hosting you, and then government himself subsidizing the amount. You see, we have a system where even if you buy pure water, just like your Awake water here, already they are paying taxes on it. And you, the purchaser, you are going to pay for that task. And that task you are paying, part of it goes to national health insurance, right? We have what they call electronic levy. Now it has been scrapped off. But we have national health insurance on it. We have light on it. We have water on it. Besides your water bill you are paying at home. If you go on the shops, anything you buy that you get receipt, you are paying tax on it. And even those who are not able to pay tax directly as mandated by our tax act, they are charged by the municipal assemblies. Every morning, hey, this is your tax, you have to pay. The pure water sellers and the hawkers in the street, they are taxed by it. So those monies from the government would also contribute to the sector. to this pension scheme, so that the creative himself, we can even push it into what we call withholding task. If I agree, you agree to charge me 2,000 for this event or 50,000. Yes, by law, we are going to pay 2.5 of your money to the pension directly. And so the regulations will be that every event organizer has to be registered. Every places where public engagement goes on, not only in music but in film, the cinemas, churches must also have to pay, unfortunately, because music and movies that are shown in churches, and even, do you know, even projectors in churches that put up people's lyrics on screens, all needs to be paid. Even our current Copyright Act talks about it. And so if they are being tasked, this one is not your income task, but the performance right that you need to pay, whether for photography, for music, for film, and all the other spectrum, you see. And so that it will also help us to understand that, yes, internal and external stakeholders are contributing their part. Me, as an artist, it is for my future. And that is why all these things happen. Why wouldn't you be happy?
It sounds like the ideal situation. And I'm reading through some of the research that you've sent, and you talked about, Professor Oseni, a national creatives registry. What would that do?
Yeah, that's thank you so much. That goes to defining who a creative is, and basically people who make a living based on their creative activities, not hobbies. You're using creative as your hobby.
I know creatives, a lot of it starts out as hobbies.
Yeah, so we are not looking at the starting one. We're looking at the peak one. You have a registered association. You belong to an association. You are a card-bearer member, and we recognize you as such because all this, just like, let's look at the National Health Insurance Scheme. We have a registry, a database that will be able to know. So once we have a National Creative Registry, then the Creative Arts Ministry will say yes, these are creatives, and these are the people that the creative arts and culture contribute to the national economy. This is how many people are employed in the creative sector. As of now, we can't say it because if you look at the Ghana Statistical Service report, population and household census 2021, it didn't give us a specific figure of how many people are creative. It made an attempt, but a lot of people are not covered in terms of creative. So once we know, because if you look at the creative arts sector, it is a cash cow for many economies, and globally, it contributes about 3.1% of GDP, right? It employs about 29.5 million people globally, and anytime you try to increase the workforce of creatives, it contributes to your GDP by 1%. Yes. So we need to support them. We need to embrace them. And we need to bring them to the formal sector so that we shape our identity, it contributes to our economy, and it creates jobs, and bring the therapeutic benefit, because the creative bring a lot of therapeutic benefit to us. The kind of warmth we get, excitement, birthdays, whatever, the way they suit us with their kind of creativity is something that we need to appreciate.
It's kind of sad that for people who bring us so much joy and help us through even grieving, the reality of their working condition is that there's low and irregular incomes. So until you get the next gig, there is no money coming in. And when it does, sometimes you're told per the research that the professors and his team has shared with us that they are very low. Of course, the lack of healthcare benefits, especially for those who have retired, who have bowed out of the spotlight. Insufficient or non-existent retirement schemes also exist. So those are some of the various working conditions that creatives in Ghana face. So we are talking about the legal reforms that will be needed to make this work. You've talked about Parliament needing to implement an act of Parliament to take care of these situations. Now, who should be in charge of managing to ensure transparency and accountability so that the concerns about what if I retire and the money never comes? So what if I am not able to present myself in person? Already there's a SNIT scheme. We've talked about how it has not been representative of all creatives and the gaps that there are. National Pensions Regulatory Authority, Prof has also mentioned them. should they be in charge of this proposed pension scheme for creatives?
Thank you very much. And just as you said, yes, but the new approach that must be attached to it is the National Registry of Creatives, because the SNIT system is working today for any company which has gone to Registrar General's Department to register as a business entity, including schools, churches, and small scale and what, every company. Once you register, you are mandated to declare that your workforce are casual workers or permanent workers. So if they are permanent workers, every pay you pay to them, 14% of that salary must be taken as their pension, right? So if we are able to create the system, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, because somebody will say, but creatives, they are also part of us. We've seen some who have made it so big and they've gone bankrupt. That is not the issue we are talking about here. We're not talking about financial management, because I'm not a financial manager person. But we are talking about how to be able to start the system. And so if we have a national regulatory authority, we need to amend their act so that their scope captures creatives. The SNIT pension systems that we have, we need to amend their mandate to also capture the supposedly informal sector.
But SNIT maintains that, exactly from what you've said, the informal, the tag, and Prof has mentioned it, that we shouldn't even refer to such categories of workers as informal.
Yeah.
But SNIT would argue, and I'm guessing other pension schemes would argue, that we've made it open for a third tier, which is voluntary. So if the people want, they can approach us and we can tailor something for them.
Good. So let me ask you too. Now you are the interview, I'm also going to interview you. So do you think if we leave it open like that, people would voluntarily go and do it? No.
Prof says the research actually shows that people will not.
They will not. And that is the part. And so if we get it regulated in terms of becoming a formal in nature, so that whether you are an independent artist or you are self-employed you personally, then, or you are an actor or whatever you do, you know that consciously I have to understand that my money that I'm being paid today, some of it is being kept for me at my retirement age. And not only retirement, we are talking about healthcare issues. We are talking about, like I said, maternity. We're talking about insurance, because you have dependents. And if those dependents, let's say something happens to you, you are indemnified. What happens to them? So these are the issues that if we have the law and we have it at the National Registry, and just last we want to say, we don't want to capture hobbies. No, we want to capture people who really wants to work with the creative sector, so that, yes, you may be a nurse, you want to sing. Okay, fine. Then register as well as a creative person. You are a teacher. Formally, you're already being paying tax for your pension. But if you want to be a musician, you want to go into acting, still register, so that you are classified and seen well, so that you know that your contributions you are getting here, the benefit is going to be much. Because you're going to collect here and collect here too.
So how do we ensure that everybody takes part? Benjamin made the point that the creatives are holding their cards close. They don't want you to touch it. So how do we ensure that enough trust is built to ensure mass participation? And, you know, because the more the merrier, and the devil really, or the more people that are engaged in the venture, the more likely it is to succeed, because, you know, small, then we get something very big. How do we ensure that that happens?
Yeah, thank you. One way, as we said, 4 major pillars: legislation. Legislation, it is the law. The law is the law. And the law is the law is the law. So once we have made the law and it mandates you that you're supposed to be doing that, it means even if I, seek for your services, if I seek for your services, I know that the law mandates me to pay this, and I'm not going to do it backdoor. And so all backdoor, when we get a whistleblower saying it, you'll be. So law is very, very important. Okay. Again, advocacy. Advocacy in terms of public education is very key, so that they will understand what they are supposed to do. And in fact, the creatives themselves are clamoring for this, because there are challenges. I'm as a researcher and as a lecturer. It's sad that I hear that some creatives are going through trying times in their old age, despite their contribution, and it's so worrisome. And speaking to them and speaking with some of them, and even some visiting some of them, it is not something we can speak of. So the act is very, very important, and then commitment, political will. One of my good friends, Abaji, gave a narrative. He's the president of FIFAC. It was like, if you are given a photograph, a group photograph, where will you look at first? You obviously look at where you are standing, whether you stand there.
Where am I?
So yes, so we are sitting here looking at where creatives are standing, and it is not in good standing. I am sure that is why the president made a very passionate appeal about that, and we look forward to that political will being translated into action, and we believe that is going to help our creatives.
Okay. So now the details of the research are out. What next? What are you going to do with this document and the amount of information you were able to gather from the ground?
Okay, so what we're going to do next is one here at this breakfast show, advocacy. Let's get people to understand that this is the new thing that we must embrace and all coming on board. The next thing was also to at least probably do an awareness walk, try to invite media and governments, inform police, and then all of us coming together. Let's work to conscientize ourselves. And we also need to do workshops and training, because it is something that we cannot just do. And then we form a team that will actually draft a bill, because without that, we aren't going anywhere. And so that is the thing. And so we would be knocking on your doors, breakfast, morning show, and all your other programs. Give us the opportunity to come and talk about it. Probably even open phone lines if it is possible. Let people call and share their ideas.
But where are the creatives in this advocacy campaign? I see researchers, academia sitting before me.
Oh, I'm also a creative.
Okay, what do you do?
I play the keyboard, I play drums, I sing, I direct, I write music, and so is Prof. Osieni as well.
I'm a sculptor. There are some statues in the public space in Accra. I was part of creating it, and I'm a textile designer. So we design textiles and I teach fashion as well. And so we are all creatives. But just as he hinted on, we will love the media, who are also part of the beneficiaries of this creative thing, to champion it. Nobody can say our stories for us. We have to say it ourselves. And we need to all jump on so that we can contribute in sending this idea far, so that we quote government support. And we believe that the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Creative Art, headed by Honorable Jifa Gomashi, is going to come in to...
Have you presented this report to her?
Yeah, we invited her on the last Tuesday. We did a policy dialogue on 8 July, which is last week, Tuesday, and invited her. Unfortunately, she made somebody to call that she's traveling. She's unable to attend. And we did invite a lot of government officials, and we've submitted copies to them. And it's also available on our university website. Yes, University of Education, so uew.edu.gh. Just type pension schemes for Ghanaian creative artists, and it's available.
Okay. So just a quick run through before we rise. What are your recommendations? Because we've talked about a number of them at different points in this interview. But to sum it all up, what are you recommending?
When we're recommending a creation of an act that is going to factor creatives in terms of pension. And that pension should be introduced progressively. And in terms of progressively, it will look for their retirement. In terms of retirement, during old age, in Ghana, we now peg it at 60. So at 60, what happens to them? The pension. And then we look at career support. A lot of creative need career, because, for example, if you look at movie, it needs a lot of investment so that we can shoot all the nice things and project or make money, with it. So they need career support. And then long-term benefit or long-term care. If you go to that generation at their old age, where they cannot even do certain things, there are people who take care of them. So based on the contribution they make, it has a series of packages that will cater for that. In addition, then we look at how they're also going to promote, the Ghanaian culture and a whole lot of issues, So that is one. Or we're suggesting the amendment of the current Senate Act, the two acts, that is governing Senate pension scheme, so that it incorporates creatives. So either we create a new one or amend the existing legal regime to accommodate creatives so that they also be covered. And then what we're looking forward to is that we're looking forward to a time where relegating creative to the background in terms of the national space, in terms of what happens to them at their old age is minimal.
Oscar,
I'm telling you.
what's your final word?
Yeah, so my final words is that we know the challenges and we are aware that people make it so well at their prime age. Some get events that like a day show, Shatawale.